The following video is by the Dark Conservatarian. If you like it, be sure to subscribe to him, link in the description. And a reminder that patrons who donate at the Super VIP level or higher are entitled to have one video mirrored on my channel per month, no questions asked. Without further ado, here's the Dark Conservatarian.
Hey, what's up everybody? It is the Dark Conservatarian and I am finally back from hiatus, as you could already tell from my previous couple of uploads, reviewing the stupid ass article that was in response to Sound of Freedom and also responding to Gothics, and of course the most recent live stream reviewing the first GOP presidential debate. But I thought that I would just come out of hiatus more officially with a little something that is more my bread and butter. A response video to a pro-choicer. Stick to the end of this video for an official announcement and word about what it means of me being back. Little side note in case you're listening and not actually looking, I'm going to be reading the text on screen with a modified voice.
This former evangelical Christian gives tips on how to respond to anti-abortion rights advocates.
I think it's important that pro-choice advocates really truly understand the arguments that the anti-choice pro-life crowd make.
I'm all for trying to understand your opposition to arguments, but isn't it a little bit of a better idea to actually talk to somebody from your opposition, or even at least like make a response video to somebody who is your opposition, as opposed to trying to create these fake representations of your opposition like she does? But not to worry, I will stand in as a pro-lifer to correct her on how wrong she is with a representation of our beliefs. Another thing to bring up is that she calls us anti-choice. I don't like to argue about who on what side of the abortion debate likes to call their side. I just grant whatever their title is. More specifically, I'll call a pro-choicer just to get that headache far out of the way. But since she brought up that subject herself, I guess I'm arguing for it right now. I won't defend all the authoritarian tradcons who want to ban gay marriage, gender transitioning, and drugs, but comparing pro-life conservative libertarians like myself to pro-choicers, I don't know this lady's beliefs. I'd assume that she might be a Democrat voter of some kind, but if she really wants to get all nitty-gritty about labels, really pro-choice Democrats aren't pro-choice either. They want to ban ownership of multiple types of guns, increase the minimum wage, impose speech laws in some cases, and impose all other kinds of business regulations. And of course, the most anti-choiciest of anti-choice positions that Democrats take up is that they're anti-school choice for some odd reason. At least I and people like me want to give the unborn baby the choice themselves to choose later in life if they themselves want to live or not, as opposed to allow their own mother to choose for them.
It's important to know what they're thinking and where they're coming from so that we can best make a case against it.
And of course, as I will point out later, this lady does not know what the pro-life position is, even though she, ironically enough, alleges that she was a former pro-lifer herself.
Rachel Kane creates TikTok content about her own religious deconstruction and the arguments that help to change her mind on abortion.
Oftentimes when we use the phrase, it's my body, it's my choice, that's misunderstood by the pro-life side to mean that we're saying the fetus is our body and we get to decide what happens to that. And though some people may mean it that way, for those of us who really identify with the body autonomy argument, we don't.
Regardless of either way, the response of "it's not just your body" still applies, because really, even if you acknowledge fully that the second body is not actually your body, it's to point out the obvious that there is not just one body that is in consideration with what action is taken in this moment, that being whether or not an abortion happens.
What we're saying is my body, as in my internal organs, my blood, all the stuff that keeps this fetus alive belongs to me. And I get to decide who uses that.
Let's change up the saying of "my body, my choice" to something like "my house, my choice." Yes, you have a right to such, and you should have the right to kick them out if you want, but you don't have the right to kill them in the process of kicking them out if they weren't a malicious invader. Or better yet, let's change the saying to my boat, my choice. If somebody got onto your boat because you invited them or somebody else stowed them away or something else that isn't of their malicious doing, and you suddenly find them unwelcomed on your boat and you decide to toss them overboard, sure, they'll be able to swim for a little while if they're a good swimmer, but eventually they'll tire and drown and die, and their death will be your doing. In the same way that if you pulled a fetus out prematurely, they're going to die and it'll be your doing as well. Again, just because your body or your property is yours doesn't mean you get to kill any person inside in the process of you trying to get them out, unless said person was a malicious invader.
Abortion is a human right not because a fetus is a woman's body, but because a fetus is using a woman's body. No one has the right to use another person's organs without their consent.
But the unborn baby is not the one who invaded on their consent. Why fault them and ultimately punish them for something that is ultimately not their doing?
Another common one that I see a lot is that adoption is great for someone who doesn't want to be a parent, but abortion is for someone who doesn't want to give birth.
Is birth really worse than death, though? Which is the thing that we seem to want to dish out to unborn babies? I would happily assert not.
Not only are you forcing a whole lot of trauma on both of those individuals.
Yeah, and I'm sure that every single child in America would have much rather have actually died than go through the quote-unquote trauma of being birthed.
But you're ignoring the fact that there are 10 months of debilitating physical symptoms.
Literally no pro-lifer ever.
That will often, for most women, last the rest of their life. And that's if they survive it.
I guess now's a good time to emphasize that almost no pro-lifer, much less myself, is against abortion in life of mother cases, which seems to be a growing straw man against us that more and more millennial and Gen Z pro-choicers seem to be gullibly buying into nowadays that I've been noticing, sadly. Aside from that, I know that pregnancy must not be an easy thing, and I know I can never experience it being that I am a man. It's just that as an outsider looking in, I see pregnancy as a natural process that our bodies, I guess more specifically, female bodies, were meant to be able to do without any long-term actual harm being done, lest there be a lot of complications in that minority of cases. And I see it, despite whatever minor negative side effects there are, must not be as bad as death, which, like I said earlier, is a thing that we do to these innocent parties that did nothing wrong, or at least we allow mothers and their abortion surgeons to immorally carry out on said innocent parties. And for all the pro-choice harpies that may actually say that birth is in fact worse than death, supposedly, I'd gander that is hyperbole more times than not.
It's not about saving babies. It's about culturally and legally mandating their version of correct sex.
And here's the part where I said to myself, bullshit, she was never a pro-lifer, and also the thing that made me title the video that I did. And before any pro-choicer taunts cope at me in the comment section, unplug your fingers out of your ears and actually listen to what I have to say. If she really was once a pro-lifer, she would at least know that our opposition against abortion is about the baby's life and preserving their right to it. Because why would she have formerly been a pro-lifer if she herself didn't care about babies' lives? Maybe she's just purely projecting what her own feelings formerly were about the subject onto the entire pro-life community? I don't know. Either A, she was formerly a pro-lifer and actually understood and believed the pro-life position, and she's now just flat out lying about our beliefs because she's so bitterly enraged at someone from her own personal life, or she's trying to do some sort of grift or something. Or B, she was never a pro-lifer, never cared about the activism or anything. She just went along with the flow to keep people off her back, lying to her parents whenever they asked her what her thoughts were back then about abortion, and just plain flat out pretended. Either way, she's a liar. And don't anyone try and tell me that there are self-proclaimed supposed pro-lifers who really actually don't give a shit about babies' right to life. I'm sure they're out there. The problem is that Rachel is saying that's how all us pro-lifers are. Bottom line is, she's wrong. It is about preserving unborn babies' right to life. Generally, why pro-lifers are pro-lifers, maybe with the side of traditional views on the side in some cases. I know what my beliefs are and what my compatriots' beliefs are, and any pro-choicer who goes around unironically spitting out this pathetic strawman can go fuck themselves with it.
I think one of the best arguments that the pro-life side can hand the pro-choice side here when it comes to the body autonomy argument is that sex itself is consent.
What the fuck? What is she talking about? What is she referring to right here? Like, I don't know. Maybe she's trying to actually refer to an actual argument that some pro-lifers actually give, but she's just like, what? Sex is consent? Maybe if she would actually quote the entire full argument, I would understand what she's trying to refer to here, but because she doesn't, I'm just confused by the exact wording that she is trying to quote here.
And I still think it failed. Sex has evolved for humans not to be just about procreation.
Wait, whoa. I thought you were talking about consent earlier. Now you're talking about procreation all of a sudden? The connective tissue between all the words that she's trying to say here, all the points she's trying to make up, is just non-existent.
Yes, procreation is a risk.
I think what you meant was pregnancy is a risk. Or at least it would make more sense in my mind if she used the exact wording of pregnancy as a risk as opposed to procreation as a risk. But aside from that, I think we're actually now starting to get somewhere.
But it's not the purpose. We can see that for humans, sex has evolved to be primarily social, and there are a few other animals where this is true. And we can see this in the fact that humans experience sexual arousal even when they're not able to conceive.
So what I'm getting here from her is that because the intent of some couples' sexual intercourse was not to procreate a child, therefore they should get the get out of jail free card of abortion if there ends up being a pregnancy. Well, you kinda already defeated your own argument earlier by admitting that pregnancy is a risk, especially when it comes to consensual sex, even if some protections are taken. You incurred on that risk of bringing in a new child in the world. You knew the risk, or at least should as a supposedly fully mature adult, and it ain't the baby's fault that you couldn't keep your junk to yourself and in your pants rather than acting on your primal urges. And yes, I will be that guy who will say, if you want to greatly diminish your chance of getting pregnant, just don't have sex. It self-explanatorily helps. Sorry, not sorry if saying don't have sex is such an offensive statement to some of y'all horny devils. In fact, why the fuck is saying don't have sex so offensive? It's not like that's an attack on anyone as a person.
Kane said it was the idea of consent and body autonomy that changed her mind on abortion.
Going along with the possibility that she really was once a pro-lifer but is now just lying about her former pro-life friend's beliefs just for a second, if that was really the case, then her parents really failed to equip her in the field of arguments and logic to use against pro-choice beliefs and arguments. And this seems to be a real problem in the pro-life community, because I've heard of pro-lifers who get gaslit out of pushing for their pro-life beliefs because some pro-choicer will come along with some separation of church and state type of argument when said pro-lifer doesn't seem to know that there are more reasons than just religious reasons to ban abortion. Abortion is not just a ban it because it's a sin against God kind of issue.
The body autonomy argument for abortion comes down to consent. It's the question of who has the right to use your body. I really like to use the analogy of kidneys. If my children are suddenly incredibly ill, their kidney is giving out, I am a match. I'm the only match that can be found. And if I donate my kidney, they'll live. Don't donate my kidney, they'll die. The government doesn't force me to donate my kidney. Even if my child will die without it, they don't force me to do that. Everyone might judge me. They might think I'm a horrible person, but no one is going to force me to do that because I own my body, and that's understood.
I don't even know how you could come to the conclusion that this is a good analogy, Mrs. Kane. The key difference is that nobody did anything to welcome even the possibility of that kidney failure on your kid, unless he stupidly drank something to instantly cause that. Certainly you did not do anything to welcome that on them. But if two people screw, then they are in fact bringing the higher possibility that they'll procreate a child. And the fact that the unborn baby is in this circumstance where they're reliant on your body to survive was nothing of their doing, but of the mother's. And the man's too, of course. This kidney failure analogy would only be analogous if you somehow put your kid up for some kind of lab test or something that brings an increased risk of their kidneys failing for some reason. And in that case, it would be largely your fault that their kidneys are failing, and then maybe at that point you should be mandated to give up one of your kidneys to save your kid as a punishment. Or as a consequence, whatever exact wording we want to say in this case.
After someone has passed, we're not allowed to take their body parts and save someone else's life, even though there is no harm that would come to that person because they're already dead. We're not allowed to do that because we recognize that that person owned their body, and before they died, they had a right to say what happened to it. Why don't we grant women the same rights that we grant corpses?
I'm going to ask a different question. Why do we give corpses any rights at all? And call this a little bit of a crass take, but I think that it is like the least of our concerns if we were to start harvesting good organs from corpses so as to give it to live people who are sick and are in more need of those organs. I'm not going to actually advocate for that, but this lady just almost makes me more sympathetic towards that sort of thought.
When we reframe the issue of abortion as a consent issue as opposed to a don't kill babies issue, we really place the woman at the forefront.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about with putting consent and women at the forefront. Women and consent were already put at the forefront long ago by the pro-choice crowd, ever since the abortion topic was a thing of debate in this country. And I don't even know why that you think you can reframe the subject so as to get it away from the don't kill babies aspect of this debate, because really that is the nub of the reason as to why that we pro-lifers are pro-lifers, and you are just not going to get rid of that, lady. Sorry, not sorry.
There is one argument Kane believes it's best to stay away from.
The most common argument is that it's a life, right? That it's a life, that you're killing a baby. I don't fight with them about when life begins because I find that when life begins is going to be an endless cycle of argument.
When I watched this video for the very first time, at first I thought she was trying to say do not address this argument out of cowardice, but now after watching it a second, third, and after that times, I guess she actually is giving a mild tepid admission that it is in fact a life.
If they're coming at it from a religious perspective, where God ordained that life before it even began, then you're never going to win that argument with them. I just grant them that it is a life.
Well, good for you. But this serves as another example as to why there's reason to doubt that Mrs. Kane ever was a pro-lifer. Because she said that it's because of religious reasons why we say unborn babies are alive. Really? I don't even think it's even partially because of religious reasons, much less only because of religious reasons why any pro-lifer says unborn babies are alive. Really, it's scientific reasons why we all say they're alive, like how metabolism and the fact that they grow are just a couple examples of how they classify as life.
Sure, it's a life from conception, but that doesn't matter.
Piss off. You don't get to just arbitrarily tell us that something doesn't matter, especially when that something that is important to our belief structure, and also important to the question of whether or not unborn babies get considered for the right to life. And even more, it's important towards debating against all the more extremist pro-choicers who literally say that unborn babies are literally not human and literally not alive.
Science itself doesn't exactly know when life starts.
You're objectively wrong. Science can and does tell us when the beginning of a single living existing human organism is.
We shouldn't be arguing.
Damn right you shouldn't, because it is one of the most frail points that pro-choicers have ever brought to the table.
Instead, we should look at it as who has the right to decide for their own body.
My rights end where your rights begin. Your right over your own body ends when the fetus's right to life and even their bodily autonomy begins.
Kane believes that conversations are essential to changing minds.
I fully believe that people can change their minds. I don't want people to be cynical and think that you can't change minds, that people don't change. And I wanted to showcase how I have changed my mind.
Except you aren't a good example of somebody who can change their minds. Because like I said earlier, either A, you were never really a pro-lifer and you were really just a pretender back in the day, or B, you might have been a pro-lifer, might have actually bought into the beliefs and everything like that, but you were not very well established at all in your beliefs. And because of that lack of establishment and lack of knowledge of what your own beliefs were back when you were a pro-lifer, that is why that your arguments are weak now as a pro-choicer, because Again, you do not understand the pro-life belief. You really don't. And before anyone, by the way, says that I am a pro-lifer who doesn't understand pro-choice beliefs, really, I have debated pro-choicers for years now and even have some subscribers who are pro-choice and they go explaining to me their beliefs a lot of the time. So yeah, actually I do have a bit of a knowledge and an idea of what the pro-choice belief is. At least more than what Rachel Kane does of pro-lifers. And what right now is the good solution so as to better establish our own fellow pro-lifers and more specifically our own children as pro-lifers in the pro-life belief? I do not know exactly. Maybe A, get them to understand the pro-choice belief a lot better. Expose them to it. Have them listen to the actual words of pro-choicers, and then maybe you give a little bit of a response after they have listened to that soundbite or whatever. The solution is definitely not to lock your children into a complete echo chamber and refuse to expose them at all from pro-choice beliefs. And maybe one thing relating to Rachel Kane and what might possibly be part of her past as to why she is the way that she is. Maybe do not be such an asshole about your pro-life beliefs. Like, I know that I said that I will gladly say just refrain from having sex, but that doesn't mean that people shouldn't be overly blunt about it to the point of saying, keep your legs closed. Like, no, I do not advocate for saying that because one, it is a bit way too blunt, and two, it can be conceived as just misogynist by some people, and it's just really unnecessary when saying don't have sex is just literally the same thing to say, but with maybe a little bit more tact behind it. And maybe if you do ultimately have a young girl who did ultimately have sex and got pregnant, just be graceful with them. Do not guilt them after the fact over the fact that they did have sex. Really, the advice of saying don't have sex should be just that, a piece of advice. It should not be a guilt-tripping talking point. Not used as that anyways. As far as me supposedly being an asshole in this video, well, I am not going to put up with uncharitability like Rachel Kane. Like how she alleged that our concerns are nothing about protecting the baby and their right to life. Regardless of what we do with our fellow pro-lifers to better establish them into their pro-life beliefs, aside from that, this doesn't change the fact that Rachel Kane, be it for better or for worse, is a liar about the pro-life belief. Anyway, that's it for this one. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, my 2 cents, for mirroring my video on your channel. Much appreciated. And like I said at the beginning, I am back, y'all. For anyone else who is curious, watch the original version of this video from my YouTube channel to hear a detailed explanation of what I have to say about being back now. I got more projects in the works right now, both for my main channel and my secondary channel, Dark Entertainment. You won't want to miss those. Anyway, y'all have a good one, and God bless.